Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of Earth's defense station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The year was 2387, and humanity had been exploring space for over 200 years. They had built colonies on 17 different star systems, always moving forward with peace in their hearts. No wars, no conquests, just steady growth among the stars. The communication panel suddenly lit up with an urgent signal. Lieutenant Brooks turned to face the Admiral, his face pale. "With worry, sir, we're receiving a transmission from deep space. The signal is unlike anything we've seen before." Torres walked over to the main screen as strange symbols appeared across it. Symbols shifted and changed until they formed words in perfect English. The voice that followed was cold and mechanical, speaking in a tone that made everyone on the bridge feel small and afraid. "People of Earth," the voice began, "you are being contacted by the Galactic Council. We are the rulers of this sector of space, and we have watched your species with growing concern." The Admiral felt his heart beat faster. First contact with aliens had always been humanity's dream, but this did not sound like the friendly meeting they had hoped for. The voice continued, "Your species has grown too quickly. In just 400 years, you have developed technologies that take most civilizations thousands of years to create. You have spread across space like a disease, consuming resources and expanding without control. This cannot be allowed to continue." The screen images appeared showing massive alien ships. They were unlike anything humans had ever built, with designs that seemed to bend light around them. The ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "We are the Galactic Council," the voice said. "We maintain order in this galaxy. 12 great civilizations work together to keep peace among the stars. The crystal beings known as architects build the laws that govern space. The energy creatures called Luminari provide the power that keeps worlds alive. Together, we have kept this galaxy stable for 10,000 years." Admiral Torres felt sweat forming on his forehead. He had always known that humanity might not be alone in the universe, but he had never imagined they would be seen as a threat. The alien voice grew colder. "Your species is what we call a plague race. You grow too fast, learn too quickly, and change too much. In our long history, we have encountered 17 other plague races. Each time, we gave them a choice. Each time, they refused to listen. Each time, we were forced to remove them completely." The words hit Torres like a physical blow. Remove them completely. The aliens were talking about wiping out entire civilizations. "You have 7 days to make your choice," the voice said. "Stop all expansion into new star systems. Give us your faster-than-light travel technology. Allow us to place limits on your population growth. If you agree to these terms, your species may continue to exist under our guidance. If you refuse, you will join the 17 races that came before you in extinction." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Torres looked around at his crew, seeing the same fear and shock in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Dr. Elena Rodriguez arrived on the bridge 30 minutes later. She was Earth's top expert on alien life, though until now, she had only studied the possibility of such life. Her hands shook as she reviewed the recorded transmission. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I've analyzed the signal. The technology behind this communication is beyond anything we understand. These beings can send messages across thousands of light years instantly. That alone tells us how advanced they are." Torres nodded grimly. "What else can you tell me?" Rodriguez pulled up data on her tablet. "The mention of 17 previous plague races troubles me greatly. I've been studying our own rapid development, and there are things about human progress that have always seemed unusual. We've advanced much faster than we should have been able to." She showed him charts and graphs that meant little to Torres, but seemed to frighten her greatly. "Sir, I think we need to consider the possibility that these aliens are telling the truth. Human development has been extraordinarily rapid. Sometimes it's almost like we already knew how to build the technologies we were discovering before." Torres could respond. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station. Lieutenant Brooks rushed to his console, his face growing pale as he read the incoming reports. Admiral Brooks called out, We're receiving distress signals from our outer colonies. Multiple star systems are reporting strange energy readings at the edges of their space. Large objects are approaching, moving faster than anything we've ever seen. Torres felt ice form in his stomach. How long until they reach our colonies? Based on current speed, less than 6 days, sir? The Admiral realized that the 7-day deadline was meaningless. The aliens had already started moving their forces into position. They expected humanity to refuse their demands, and they were. Preparing to carry out their threat, Rodriguez was studying her tablet with growing alarm. Admiral, there's something else. I've been looking at historical records from our deepest space observations. Over the past 50 years, we've detected 17 star systems that simply went dark. No warning, no explanation. They just stopped existing as far as our instruments could tell. Torres understood immediately. The 17 plague races. Yes, sir. And if the pattern holds, they're not just planning to defeat us in battle. They're planning to erase us completely. No survivors, no trace that humanity ever existed. The Admiral looked out at the stars again, but now they seemed cold and hostile instead of beautiful and welcoming. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were moving toward human space with the intention of ending everything his species had ever built, or dreamed of becoming. He activated the emergency communication system, sending urgent messages to Earth and every human colony. Message was simple, but carried the weight of their entire future. This is Admiral Torres of Earth Defense Command. Humanity is under threat of total extinction. All colonies prepare for immediate evacuation to defensive positions. This is not a drill. We are at war. As the messages went out across human space, Torres wondered if they would have enough time to mount any kind of defense. The aliens had been planning this for who knew how long. While humanity had been caught completely unprepared, the stars that had once promised infinite possibilities now promised only death. But Torres was determined that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. If the aliens wanted a war, they would get one, even if it meant fighting against impossible odds. The peaceful age of human expansion was over. The age of survival had begun. Captain Lisa Park was conducting routine research near the edge of the Haven Prime system when her instruments began screaming warnings. The research vessel Aurora had been studying unusual plant life from the agricultural colony when everything changed in an instant. Captain, her science officer called out, I'm detecting massive energy readings from the direction of Haven Prime. Something's happening to the planet. Park rushed to the main viewer just in time to see something that would haunt her dreams. Forever. Haven Prime. A beautiful blue-green world that had been home to over 2 million people simply disappeared. Not destroyed by explosions or fire, but gone as if it had never existed at all. Where the planet had been, there was now empty space. The stars still burned, the other planets still orbited, but Haven Prime was just gone. No debris, no energy. Signature. Nothing to show that a thriving world had existed there moments before. Get us out of here now, Park ordered, her voice barely steady. Maximum speed, random course. Record everything. As the Aurora fled the system, Park's sensors picked up the ships responsible. They were massive beyond belief, made of materials that seemed to bend light around them. The alien vessels moved through space without any visible engines, gliding like ghosts among the stars. Back on Earth, President Hayes received the news in his emergency bunker deep beneath the Capitol. The reports from Captain Park were impossible to believe, but the sensor data didn't lie. Haven Prime had been completely erased from existence. Along with every man, woman, and child who had called it home, Hayes addressed the world from the bunker, his face grave as he spoke to billions of frightened humans. My fellow citizens of Earth and the colonies, we face an enemy unlike any we have ever imagined. They have shown us that they possess weapons that can erase entire worlds. The peaceful expansion that has defined humanity for 2 centuries is over. We are now fighting for our very survival. Dr. Rodriguez worked frantically in her laboratory, studying the data from Haven Prime's destruction. The weapons signatures were unlike anything in human science. The aliens hadn't just destroyed the planet, they had somehow removed it from reality itself. Even the light that should have been reflecting off the world's surface was gone, as if Haven Prime had never existed. Admiral Torres coordinated Earth's defenses from his command center, but he knew they were facing impossible odds. Every report from the outer colonies brought worse news. The alien fleets were massive. Their technology was beyond human understanding. They showed no interest in negotiation or mercy. Sir Lieutenant Brooks reported, "We're receiving evacuation requests from 12 colonies. They're detecting alien ships approaching their systems." Torres studied the tactical display, watching red dots move steadily toward blue ones that represented human worlds. "Order all non-essential personnel to evacuate to the inner systems. Military vessels are to engage only if they can delay the enemy advance." But Torres knew that conventional military tactics would be useless against an enemy that could erase entire planets. He needed to understand how the aliens were doing it, and more importantly, how humanity could fight back. Dr. Rodriguez burst into the command center 3 hours later, carrying a tablet filled with data that had taken her team all day to analyze. "Admiral, I've discovered something important about the weapon that destroyed Haven Prime." She showed him complex charts and readings that meant little to him, but her excitement was clear. The aliens are using some kind of reality warping technology. They're not just destroying matter, removing it from existence entirely. But there's something else. Something about us. Rodriguez pulled up genetic data that she had been studying for years. "Admiral, human DNA contains sequences that shouldn't exist. Patterns that suggest we were modified long ago by some advanced civilization. I think we're not entirely natural." Torres frowned. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying that our rapid technological advancement might not be natural either. These genetic modifications seem to affect our brains, making us able to understand and develop technology much faster than we should be able to. The aliens called us a plague race, but I think we're something more specific. I think we're the descendants of one of the previous races they tried to eliminate." Before Torres could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The alien fleets had reached the next wave of human colonies, and the results were the same as Haven Prime, New Tokyo, Harmony Station, and the mining world of Iron Ridge all simply vanished from existence within hours of each other. Captain Park, now fleeing toward Earth with her precious sensor data, managed to get close enough to observe one of the attacks. She watched in horror as an alien ship approached New Tokyo, a world with over 5 million inhabitants. The ship didn't fire any visible weapon. Instead, it simply moved closer to the planet, and reality seemed to bend around both vessels. The effect was like watching the world dissolve. Buildings, people, the atmosphere, even the planet's core just faded away like smoke. In less than 10 minutes, another thriving human world had been erased completely. Park's science officer, Tom Davis, was monitoring the alien ship when he noticed something strange. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from our own ship during the attack. It's almost like we're resonating with whatever the aliens are doing." Park ordered a full sensor sweep of her own vessel and crew. What they found was disturbing. Every human on board was showing unusual brain activity. During the alien attacks, their neural patterns were changing, adapting, almost like their minds were learning from the alien technology. When Park reported this to Earth, Dr. Rodriguez immediately understood the significance. The genetic modifications in human DNA weren't just making them better at technology. They were making humans naturally compatible with the same reality warping abilities the aliens were using. Admiral Rodriguez said excitedly, "I think the aliens are afraid of us for a very specific reason. We're not just developing technology quickly, we're developing the same reality manipulating abilities that they use. That's why they want to eliminate us before we figure out how to use these powers." Torres looked at the strategic display, watching. More red dots moved toward human space. Half of their colonies were already gone, erased from existence without a trace. But if Rodriguez was right, humanity might have weapons they didn't even know they possessed. "Doctor, how long would it take to figure out how to use these abilities?" Rodriguez shook her head. "Under normal circumstances, probably decades or centuries. But Admiral, these aren't normal circumstances. The alien attack seemed to be triggering something in human minds. Captain Park's crew showed brain changes just from observing the attacks. If we could expose more people to the alien technology safely, we might be able to accelerate the process. Torres realized what she was suggesting. To fight the aliens, humanity would have to deliberately change themselves, possibly beyond recognition. They would have to become something other than human to save humanity itself. The choice was simple, but terrible. Let the aliens erase them from existence, or transform into something that might be able to fight back. As another colony vanished from the tactical display, Torres made his decision. Doctor, start Project Catalyst immediately. We need volunteers. Willing to risk everything to save our species. If we have to become monsters to fight monsters, then that's what we'll do. 6 months had passed since the first alien attacks, and humanity was losing the war badly. Half of all human colonies had been erased from existence, and the alien fleets continued their steady advance toward Earth. But in hidden laboratories and training facilities, Dr. Rodriguez and her team were working on humanity's desperate gamble. Project Catalyst had begun with volunteers from across human space. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens had stepped forward to undergo experimental procedures designed to awaken the strange abilities hidden in human DNA. Most of the early attempts had failed, leaving the volunteers unchanged. Or worse, the breakthrough came during the defense of New Geneva, an industrial colony in the Tau Ceti system. Engineer Marcus Taylor had been working on damaged ship repairs when alien vessels appeared at the edge of the system. His transport ship had been badly damaged, with failing life support and a hull breach that should have killed everyone. Aboard, Taylor was trapped in the engineering section when the ship's navigation systems failed completely. The vessel was drifting toward an asteroid field that would crush it to pieces, the oxygen running out and no way to contact the bridge. Taylor did something impossible. Security cameras recorded the entire event. The ship, which had been solid metal and ceramic just moments before, became translucent like glass. Taylor, somehow controlling the vessel through pure willpower, guided it through solid asteroids as if they weren't there. The ship passed through hundreds of tons of rock without taking any damage. When the ship reached safety, Taylor collapsed from exhaustion. Medical scans showed that his brain had been operating at levels that should have killed him. But he was alive. And he had saved everyone aboard using abilities that violated every known law of physics. Dr. Rodriguez studied the recordings for days, trying to understand what had happened. It's as if he briefly existed in a different reality, she explained to Admiral Torres, one where solid matter couldn't stop him. The question is how he did it, and whether we can teach others. The answer came from Captain Park, who had been leading desperate raids against alien supply lines. Her ship, the Aurora, had been modified with equipment designed to trigger the same brain changes that Taylor had experienced. The results were beyond anything they had hoped for. During a battle near the Centauri system, Park's crew began manifesting abilities that seemed like magic. Weapons Officer David Liu could somehow predict exactly where enemy ships would fire, allowing him to dodge attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Navigator Anna Costa plotted courses through hyperspace that broke every rule of space travel but got them exactly where they needed to go. Park herself discovered that she could somehow sense the alien ships even when they were invisible to normal sensors. It was as if she could feel their presence in her mind, tracking their movements through pure instinct rather than technology. The human fleet won their first major victory against the alien forces, destroying 3 enemy ships and capturing valuable intelligence about their technology. But the success came with a terrible price. Half of Park's crew suffered severe brain damage from overusing their new abilities. 2 crew members simply vanished, phasing out of reality and never returning. Dr. Rodriguez realized that the human mind wasn't designed to handle these reality-warping powers. Using them was like running a computer processor far beyond its design limits. It worked, but it burned out the hardware in the process. The aliens, meanwhile, were adapting to humanity's new capabilities. Intelligence gathered from captured alien technology revealed that the Galactic Council had faced similar abilities before. They called them chaos manipulators and had developed specific countermeasures. Admiral Torres watched in frustration as alien ships began deploying devices that prevented human abilities from working. The reality anchors created zones where the laws of physics remained stable, stopping humans from phasing through matter or predicting the future. They've done this before, Torres realized during a strategy meeting. The 17 previous plague races must have had similar abilities. The aliens have been preparing for this kind of war for thousands of years. The war escalated as both sides deployed increasingly desperate weapons. The aliens began targeting Earth's moon, using massive gravity weapons to destabilize its orbit and threaten life on the planet. Humanity responded by creating Special Forces soldiers who could phase through enemy ship hulls and destroy them from within. The new human soldiers were terrifying to witness. They could walk through solid walls, appear and disappear at will, and survive in the vacuum of space by briefly existing in dimensions where air was available. But each use of their powers brought them closer to madness or death. Dr. Rodriguez made a disturbing discovery while studying captured alien prisoners. The energy-based Luminari were not naturally occurring beings. They had once been a solid species that had transformed themselves to fight a previous war. The crystalline architects had also been something else before becoming living minerals. "Admiral," she reported, "I don't think any of the Council races are in their original forms. They've all been changed by warfare, transformed into something that can better fight reality manipulators. The question is whether that's what we're becoming too." Torres looked at reports from across human space. Soldiers who had used their abilities too much were changing physically. Some became translucent like ghosts. Others began to exist in multiple places at once. A few had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies entirely, becoming pure energy. Beings like the Luminar. The transformation was spreading beyond the military. Civilians who lived near battle zones were beginning to manifest abilities as well. Children born during the war showed signs of having the powers from birth. Humanity was evolving rapidly, but no one knew what they were evolving into. Captain Park, now leading a fleet of reality-manipulating ships, discovered the truth during a raid on an alien research facility. Deep in the captured database, she found records going back 10,000 years. The Galactic Council hadn't just fought 17 plague races. They had been plague races themselves. The files revealed the cycle that had been repeating across galactic history. A species would develop reality-warping abilities and challenge the established order. The existing powers would unite to fight them, transforming themselves in the process. The winners would then form a new council to maintain stability until the next plague race emerged. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were participating in a cosmic cycle of evolution and war that had shaped the galaxy for millions of years. The question was whether they would be destroyed like so many others, or whether they would become the next rulers of space. As alien fleets massed for a final assault on Earth, Torres made a difficult decision. All restrictions on human ability development were removed. Every man, woman, and child would be given the chance to evolve or die trying. Humanity would transform completely, no matter the cost. The peaceful species that had once explored the stars with wonder and hope was gone, forever. In its place, something new and terrible was being born among the flames of galactic war. 18 months into the war, humanity had changed beyond recognition. The desperate fight for survival had awakened abilities that seemed to violate the very laws of reality. Human soldiers could now phase through solid matter at will, exist in multiple locations simultaneously, and manipulate probability itself to avoid enemy fire. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Defiance, leading the largest human fleet ever assembled. Their target was Nexus Station, the alien command center that coordinated all enemy forces in this sector of space. The station was a marvel of alien engineering. It's built inside a hollowed-out moon and protected by weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "All ships report ready," Captain Park announced from her position aboard the Aurora. Her vessel had been transformed into something that barely resembled a normal spacecraft. The hull shifted and changed constantly, existing in multiple dimensions at once to avoid enemy detection. Torres gave the order to attack, and the human fleet moved forward like ghosts among the stars. Ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing as they closed the distance to their target. The alien defenders opened fire with weapons that should have destroyed the attacking force. But the energy beams passed harmlessly through vessels that were only partially present in this reality. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved through alien shields as if they didn't exist, their weapons firing from impossible angles as the crews manipulated space and time itself. Boarding parties phased directly through enemy hulls, appearing inside alien vessels to sabotage them from within. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Torres watched his tactical display as human life signs began disappearing. Soldiers and crew members who pushed their abilities too far simply faded from existence, lost between dimensions where no rescue was possible. Others suffered complete neural breakdown, as their minds couldn't handle the strain of manipulating reality. Dr. Rodriguez, now working from a laboratory ship that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, had discovered the horrifying truth about the war's casualties. The humans who had disappeared weren't dead. They were being used as living power sources for alien weapons. During a raid on an alien facility, Captain Park's team had found chambers filled with humans in suspended animation. Their bodies were connected to machines that harvested the quantum energy produced by their reality warping abilities. The missing colonists from the early attacks hadn't been killed. They had been turned into batteries for the Council's most powerful weapons. The discovery sparked humanity's darkest hour, learning that their people had been subjected to a fate worse than death. Human forces abandoned all restraint. The weapons they deployed in response were beyond terrifying. Quantum torpedoes that didn't just destroy enemy ships but erased them from history itself. Probability bombs that made it so alien fleets had never been built in the first place. Torres watched entire enemy armadas simply cease to exist, not destroyed by explosions, but removed from the timeline completely. It was satisfying revenge. But he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was becoming something monstrous in their quest for survival. The war escalated beyond all reason as both sides deployed weapons that threatened the stability of space itself. Human forces began using temporal manipulation, attacking alien fleets in the past before they could launch their assaults. The aliens responded with reality anchors so powerful that they created dead zones in space where nothing could exist. Dr. Rodriguez sent urgent warnings to all human commanders. The quantum weapons are creating instabilities in local spacetime. If we continue this escalation, we risk collapsing the entire star system into a dimensional void. But with Earth itself now under direct attack and alien planet killer weapons approaching the solar system, there seemed no choice but to continue the devastating escalation. The Galactic Council had deployed their ultimate weapon, a device powered by thousands of captured humans that could turn stars into black holes. Captain Park led a desperate mission to destroy the Starkiller before it could reach Earth. Her ship, now more energy than matter, phased through layers of alien defenses that shouldn't have been possible to penetrate. Her crew, many of whom no longer had physical bodies, manipulated reality on a scale that defied comprehension. The battle to destroy the Starkiller became a fight between competing versions of reality itself. The aliens tried to make it so that human attack had never happened. The humans responded by creating a timeline where the alien weapon had destroyed itself during construction. Space around the battlefield became a shifting maze of contradictory realities, each side trying to impose their version of events on the universe. Torres received reports that made no sense according to normal physics. Ships were fighting battles that had already ended. Weapons were firing at enemies that had been destroyed yesterday. And crew members were dying before they had been born. The war had moved beyond the physical universe into realms where cause and effect no longer had meaning. In the end, it was human determination that proved decisive. While the aliens relied on technology to manipulate reality, Humans had learned to do it through pure force of will. When their machines failed, the aliens were helpless. But humans could continue fighting even when their bodies no longer existed. The Star Killer was destroyed in a burst of impossible energy that created a new type of star, one that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The alien fleet, responsible for the attack, simply ceased to have ever existed. Written out of history by human survivors who refused to accept defeat. But victory in this battle only revealed the true scope of the war. Across the galaxy, reality itself was breaking down as the conflict between human will and alien technology tore holes in the fabric of spacetime. Entire star systems flickered in and out of existence. Planets existed in multiple timelines simultaneously. The laws of physics had become suggestions rather than absolute rules. Admiral Torres realized that they had won the war, but at a cost that might destroy the universe itself. Humanity had gained the power to reshape reality according to their desires, but they had lost the wisdom to know when to stop. They were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to determine what reality itself would become. As reports came in from across human space, Torres understood that there was no going back. Every human in the galaxy now possessed reality warping abilities to some degree. Children were being born who existed in multiple dimensions from birth. Adults were evolving beyond the need for physical bodies entirely. The peaceful species that had once dreamed of exploring the stars was gone forever. In its place stood something that even the ancient Galactic Council feared. Humanity had become beings of pure possibility, capable of making anything real through sheer force of will. The question now wasn't whether they would win the war. The question was what kind of universe would exist when the fighting finally ended, and whether anything resembling humanity would still exist to see it. The final battle began when the massive Council Armada entered the Sol system, led by the architects themselves and their ancient flagship. The crystalline beings had decided to end the war personally, bringing with them a weapon that could turn Earth's sun into a black hole and ensure that no trace of human genetics would ever again threaten galactic order. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Defiance. But the ship barely resembled anything that could be called a vessel anymore. It existed as a shifting pattern of energy and possibility, its crew having evolved beyond the need for physical forms. Torres himself flickered between multiple versions of reality, each one representing a different possible outcome of the coming battle. All human forces, prepare for quantum phase transition, Torres commanded, his voice reaching every human mind across the galaxy simultaneously. What followed was unprecedented in the history of warfare. Every human ship, every human settlement, every human being entered a state of quantum superposition, existing in all possible realities at once. The human fleet became a probability cloud, simultaneously present and absent, real and imaginary. They existed in every possible configuration of the battle, from total victory to complete defeat, waiting for the moment when they would collapse back into the single reality that favored their survival. Captain Park, now existing as pure consciousness linked to the Aurora, led the assault on the Council flagship. Her ship phased through dimensions that had no names, moving through realities where the laws of physics were different, where time flowed backward, where effect preceded cause. The architects responded with their own reality warping technology, but they were fighting an enemy that had transcended the need for machines. Where the aliens used devices to manipulate spacetime, humans had become spacetime itself. They were no longer bound by the limitations of physical existence. Dr. Rodriguez, working from her laboratory that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, made the final breakthrough that would decide the war. She had discovered how to link every human consciousness into a single quantum network, allowing them to share their reality warping abilities across the entire species. All humans, link now, she broadcast across the quantum network. Become one mind, one will, one purpose. Effect was immediate and terrifying. Every human in the galaxy, from the soldiers fighting in space to the children hiding in shelters, joined their consciousness together. They became a single entity with billions of perspectives, a collective mind that could perceive and manipulate reality on a scale that dwarfed even the ancient Galactic Council. the Council. Flagship found itself trapped in a reality where its weapons had never been invented, where its crew had never been born, where its very existence was a logical impossibility. The architects tried to fight back, but their technology was useless against enemies who could simply decide that the laws of physics were different across the galaxy. Every human simultaneously used their abilities to reshape local space-time. Council ships found themselves existing in realities where they were made of paper instead of advanced alloys. Alien weapons fired harmlessly because the humans had decided that energy and matter were the same thing. Entire fleets ceased to exist because humanity collectively agreed that they had never been built. The tide turned when something unprecedented happened. The humans who had been captured and used as living batteries for Council weapons suddenly awakened. Their consciousness, linked to the quantum network, allowed them to turn the alien devices against their creators. Weapons powered by human suffering became tools of liberation. But the true horror of what humanity had become was revealed in the final moments of the battle. The collective human consciousness, drunk on the power to reshape reality, began to rewrite the fundamental laws of the universe itself. They made gravity work backward in some regions of space. They created zones where time moved in circles. They established entire star systems where mathematics followed different rules. The architects, facing the complete collapse of universal order, finally surrendered. But their final message was a warning that echoed across the galaxy. You have become something beyond mortal comprehension. You are no longer human. You are chaos given form, possibility made manifest. You have saved your species, but you have lost your souls. Admiral Torres, now existing as a pattern of pure thought, realized the truth in the alien words. Looking at what humanity had become, he saw beings of infinite possibility, but no longer possessed of the qualities that had once made them human. They could reshape reality with a thought, but they had lost the capacity for simple human emotions, like love, fear, or hope. The war was over. The Galactic Council had been defeated completely, their fleets scattered across dimensions, their weapons turned to dust by human will. But the victory was hollow. Humanity had transcended every limitation that had once defined them, and in doing so, they had transcended humanity itself. In the aftermath, survivors tried to return to normal existence, but normal no longer had any meaning. Children were born who existed in multiple realities simultaneously, unable to understand why their parents could only see one version of the world. Adults found themselves accidentally reshaping matter with stray thoughts, creating pocket universes. When they daydreamed, Captain Park, attempting to return to her human form, discovered that she had forgotten how to exist in only one dimension at a time. Dr. Rodriguez found that her consciousness had become so expanded that she could perceive the thoughts of every living being in the galaxy simultaneously. The simple act of being human had become impossible. The galaxy itself had been changed by the war. Entire regions of space operated under different physical laws created by human will during the heat of battle. New forms of matter existed that had never been possible before. Time flowed in spirals around certain star systems, creating loops where the same events happened forever. Humanity had become the new rulers of the galaxy. But they ruled over a reality that they had fundamentally broken. They were beings of pure possibility, able to make anything real through force of will. But they had lost the wisdom to know what should be real and what should remain fantasy. The story ended with the scattered remnants of the Galactic Council, fleeing to distant galaxies, carrying warnings about the chaos that humanity had unleashed. They spoke of a species that had gained the power of gods, but retained the recklessness of children, reshaping reality according to their whims without understanding the consequences. And in the transformed galaxy, humanity stood alone, masters of everything, but no longer truly human. They had held peace for centuries, but when the stars declared war, they had responded by becoming something that the universe itself feared. They were the victors, but they had paid the ultimate price for their survival. The stars were safe from the Council's tyranny. But now they had to contend with something far more unpredictable and dangerous: humanity unleashed. With the power to make anything possible, and the terrible freedom to decide what reality should become, in the end, they had saved themselves by becoming the very thing they had fought against. They were no longer human, but they were alive. And in a universe where survival was the only victory that mattered, perhaps that was enough.